Good morning and praise the Lord. My name is Melanie Stewart, and it is my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of our pastor, Dr. Byron T. Brazier, and the Career Development Ministry of the Apostolic Church of God to part 3 of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion series on navigating organizations, finding your advocate, mentor, and sponsor. Thank you so much for joining us. We have an exciting program today for you that will focus on truths about effective networking, the importance of mentors and sponsors for career development, and identifying your circle of influence. Our featured panelists come to you with a wealth of knowledge that will prompt a thought-provoking discussion on these subjects. So please, whether you're joining us on Facebook, ACOG+, or on YouTube, please use the chat or comment box to send us your questions and your comments. Before we begin the program, let's start off with a brief prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to gather today in the spirit of seeking knowledge and truth. We thank you for the opportunity to gain wisdom today about mentorship and sponsorship, and we pray that this program will be a blessing to all. Lord, thank you for leading us to a church that values career development of its members and for the members of the community, and for a church that sponsors programs such as the one that we're on right now. We know that all of the blessings and opportunities in our lives are attributed to you and your will, and we are grateful for that. Lord, please bless our panelists as they impart knowledge to our viewers, and bless our viewers so that they will walk away with insight that will bless them in many ways. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. And now, Prince Kuumba, our moderator for today and a restaurant and hospitality industry professional who specializes in creating great work cultures, will kick us off. Prince, over to you.
Thank you, Melanie. I greatly appreciate it. And again, welcome to the third Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion panel discussion. I'm really excited to introduce our panelists. My name is Prince Kuumba. I'll be your monitor today. And we will be talking about navigating organizations and finding a mentor, sponsor, and advocate. First, I'd like to introduce our first panelist, Michael Fisher. He is an agency vice president and community business development at County Financial. Michael, can you come on and say a little bit about yourself for the audience?
Sure. Well, good morning, Prince. Good morning, Melanie, and good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Mike Fisher, and I'm a recently retired vice president with Country Financial. On paper, I have over 40 years of experience in the financial services industry, primarily banking and insurance. I've served in a number of roles in my career, leading commercial banking teams that serve middle market companies. I've worked in branch operations, corporate communications, led PR teams, and diversity and inclusion initiatives. Again, I've recently retired from my current role at Country Financial, where I help lead our recruitment, multicultural marketing efforts, and community relations in our larger urban markets that we serve. At heart, I'm a connector. In my real life as a connector, I think I'm a servant leader, a shaker of hands, a networker, a guy that's motivated by social consciousness to build a more robust and financially empowered multicultural community. And I try to do that through my board service and through my previous role with Country. And then away from my desk, I'm an avid sports fan. I'm a crummy golfer and a tireless traveler. I'm also a history nut, so traveling anywhere means I'm diving in and mingling with the locals. So I am delighted to be here today and to share a little perspective from my personal career journey.
Thank you, Mike. I greatly appreciate that. I really love that you started saying you're a servant leader. I love that one. All right, next, I'd like to introduce our panelist, Jim Mills. He is also retired Sprint and T-Mobile area president and life coach. Jim, can you please tell us a little about yourself, sir?
Yeah, hi, Prince and Melanie and everybody else. Nice to see everybody this morning. So, like Mike, I've had a very long career. I started in retail with Radio Shack as a part-timer about 38 years ago. And, it was one of those things I didn't have a a lot of money. I was looking for something to do, and I started at Radio Shack when I was 18, and it turned out to be a wonderful career over 24 years, and it kind of launched me professionally into much larger jobs with other companies. I ended up with T-Mobile and Sprint most recently, and just had a great time. What I learned over those years, I'm really going to enjoy talking about it this morning, but what I learned over the years is things like sponsors and mentors are extremely important. And I can tell you, I was lucky. I didn't even know what a mentor was, 37 years ago, but I was lucky enough to get a mentor who helped guide my career in my early days. And then I picked up a couple sponsors. I can tell you that this is life-changing stuff. One of the mentors that I picked up early in my career is we've ended up having a 30-year relationship. I mean, we've been friends for over 30 years at this point. So the things that we're going to talk about today, they're very important, not only for today, but they're going to carry you through the rest of your life. I will tell you one thing I've learned in all my years, and that's that no matter where you're working, it doesn't matter what company, what industry, it doesn't matter, what position you have. Just understand this: you are in the people business. It doesn't matter if you're, selling electronics like I did or slogging phones in my last job. I mean, at the end of the day, I was in the people business. And if you really understand that and learn that as a part of your life, you'll have wonderful, wonderful success.
Thank you, Jim. And I love that advice piece that you gave us at the end. People, it's sometimes our underutilized asset in the organization, and people don't take advantage of how valuable people really are. So I really appreciate you saying that. So let us jump right in. And I would like to start out with Mike. Mike, can you please answer wait, before I get started, because I don't want to just ask our questions, I want to encourage the audience to jump in. Please ask the questions. So then we can ask questions live to our panelists. So again, please do not hesitate to ask questions as we are going on, and I'll do my best to look through and ask them the questions. So first, Mike, start out with, what is a mentor?
Well, in a nutshell, we're talking about mentors and sponsors today. A mentor helps you to skill up, whereas I think sponsors kind of help you to move up. So a mentor, they advise you, they listen, they provide insight, and they share formal or informal advice to help you gain critical skills and navigate challenges that you may meet from a day-to-day basis within your career.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Well, next, we'll go right over to Jim. Can you answer, what is a sponsor?
I can, but Mike, first off, I got to say, skill up and move up. I am absolutely going to take that and use it. I'll give you credit. That was great.
Take credit for that one, but I've heard that.
I'll absolutely give you credit. I'll put a little TM by it or something. But yeah, there's a critical difference between a mentor and a sponsor, and a lot of people think that they're the same, and they're really not. So Mike's right. What a mentor does is help grow your skills, and what a sponsor does is exactly what the name implies. They will sponsor you, put their reputation on the line, and then recommended you for different things, whether it be promotions, other companies, sideway moves, whatever it might be. So they may teach you some stuff along the line, but the big difference is what a sponsor does is they will put their either hers or his reputation on the line on your behalf to help you move up in an organization or up in something. So critical difference, and you really do need both along the way.
Thank you. That's very important. I think that's a very simple way for our audience to understand the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. Thank you, guys. So as we continue, does your mentor or sponsor need to be in the same line of work, or would you gentlemen recommend maybe looking for sponsors outside of that line?
I'm happy to answer that. I believe that they can be from anywhere because skills are so transferable nowadays. I started out my career in retail and ended up doing all kinds of crazy stuff later in life, from marketing to store design to you name it. And I did notice across the way that the skills are transferable. And some of the fun parts of finding mentors outside of your industry is it helps you expand your networking, or it helps you expand your network in case you need to move companies or such along the line. So I would be all in for going in any industry that you can find a good one.
Let me add something. I think, I do agree with Jim that, while I do believe that everybody can benefit from some practical insight on getting ahead that transcends any industry, I personally believe that having someone from within your company or industry helps in many more respects, such as understanding the company culture, or what technical skill development can get you positioned for advancement within your specific company. And I think that understanding the culture and understanding what the currency of success is within your company is critical for advancement. And by what I mean by the currency of success is, does your company value an MBA? So all executives have MBAs. Do they highly value people that have had sales experience or customer facing roles? Or do they value people that are extremely mobile when it comes to relocation, et cetera? So just understanding what is the currency of success in your company is pretty critical for advancement.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jim. Excellent information. Excellent. So we do have a question come in. Let me see. This is coming from Mark Hay from Facebook. His question for you, gentlemen, is how do you navigate within a new acquisition? My firm was newly acquired, and many are trying to figure out how to fit into the new firm.
I would love to take that one on first. So I had that exact same thing happen to me. I worked 24 years in one industry and then left and went to a completely different everything. I mean, a different culture, different industry, different work style and everything else. And I didn't realize it when I accepted the position. When I got there, I started to panic because everything was different. I mean, I didn't, after 24 years at one place, you kind of know everything. And then I got to this new place and I knew nothing. And I got a tip from a mentor, the one that I told you we've been friends with from all this time. He said, everybody likes to talk about themselves. That's just one of the truisms of the world. And his advice was, and I followed it, it worked beautifully. He said, once you get to the new company, pick up the phone or send an email and pick some people from different departments within the company, send them a quick note and say, hey, I'm Jim, I'm new here. I see that you're in marketing. I've always been enamored with what marketing does to bring new customers into your store or whatever. Would you have 15 minutes for a quick phone call? And I did 4 or 5 of those a week. 3 or 4 of them would take me up on the offer. But after a month or so, I really knew a lot of people in the companies. I picked up a sponsor along the way, by the way. Mm-hmm. Anyway, in an acquisition, it would be something very similar. Hey, I'm new. I'm from the incumbent company. I'm looking to learn the new culture. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Anyway, I don't want to ramble, but it was very effective. It worked very well.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with Jim. That happened to me also. I was working for Harris Bank right out of college. And then I think 3 years after, I started working there, we were acquired by Bank of Montreal. So totally different organization, much larger, different culture, a Canadian organization, et cetera. And I think Jim's point is right. I think networking is critical. And I think a lot of times we think of networking only from an external perspective, going to those different events, those business events after work, or et cetera, et cetera. But networking internally is very critical, and making those calls for coffee are very critical. And then I think it also comes down to just continuing to put your head down and perform well, because they'll notice outstanding performance. And if you're performing, at a top level, they'll notice you.
Well, thank you, Mike. Sorry, I'm just doing both of listening to you both and trying to cipher through some questions. But very interesting. We have something else coming in, but I don't want to, I know he said he was rambling a little bit, but I don't want to navigate away from that, because I think you said something that was very important, is developing those relationships. And we hear the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But the saying's not around for no reason. You really, and to be frank, you can't do it for your self-serving reasons, like you talked about. Everyone wants to talk about themselves, right? No, you have to genuinely make the phone call and try to communicate with this person and get to know this person and develop a relationship. That's what actual networking, that's what develops and helps build to that potential sponsorship or mentorship, not just going through the motions. So I appreciate you gentlemen taking that one. I do have another question that I wanted to, from, I believe that's Monica. She has, Monica Jones from Facebook. She asked, what mentoring advice would you give any entrepreneurs?
I would suggest a couple of things. Obviously, if you are an entrepreneur and you're promoting your own business, then obviously getting out and to as many events and many networking opportunities is critical as possible, because I think it's not just who you know, but it's who knows you and who knows your company and your product and what it does and how it can help their particular situation. So I do think that it's the same drill. You just got to get out and put in the time and effort to attend as many events as possible. And then also, I think it's also networking with peers. So if there are industry opportunities or, to gather, trade shows, different conferences, or just, different opportunities to network with people who do what you do or in that that similar space, that's another way to expand your circle and learn as well.
Yeah, Mike's absolutely right. Networking, getting out in groups is critical. There's a couple other things. Don't forget about LinkedIn groups. There's lots of industry-specific groups on LinkedIn where you can meet people. Facebook groups as well, which you would know, being from Facebook. And there's also new technology, things like lunchclub.com, where you go in and put a quick profile together, and it will match you as many matches a week as you want for 45-minute lunch Zooms. You could put some industry-specific things in there and meet other people. So Mike's right. There's no thing better than getting out live and in person, and we can do that now, luckily. But don't forget, there's some technology behind there too to help drive your networking.
Hey Jim, what was that last social media site that you recommended?
It's called lunchclub.com. I've been doing it for about a year now. It's amazing. You can, there's all kinds of perimeters. You can meet people locally, across the world, across the country, whatever. You put a little profile in there about what you want to talk about, and they will match you up to 5 matches a week. And it's generally around lunchtime. It's 45 minutes, and it'll be a Zoom link. And I've met just some amazing people through that process. It's very, very unique.
That sounds interesting. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jim. Let's continue down. Excellent. So we are going to go on to, still with the mentor and sponsorship path, but go a little bit different. How would you, gentlemen, recommend how one can attract a mentor or sponsor from a different gender or ethnic group?
Mike said something earlier that I thought was profound, and you can attract mentors and sponsors will be attracted to you if you perform and if you come with full character to work every day. In other words, be your authentic self, work hard, always do what's right. There's all those things that go into it. When it comes to different genders and ethnicities, it really just becomes in my mind, it becomes a play of making sure that you're always in groups that are well diversified. So you can go out of your way to be in various groups at work. Demetrius, I know, is on the call today. Her and I, when we were at T-Mobile together, joined the DEI. Actually, I don't think it was called DEI back then. I think it was just called EI. But we put ourselves in those positions so we could diversify, be with more diversified groups of people. So you have to perform. You have to have those basic character traits. You've got to do what's right within the company, but then put yourself in the position to be networked with people of different diversity sets.
Yeah, and I would say, obviously it's not easy, because obviously when you look to form relationships, people are typically drawn together by similarities. I think, as I think back on my career personally, I found that when I moved to country, at that time there weren't any other senior leaders of color. So I've kind of found myself in that situation. But I do think that the common ground is the fact that you do work for the same company, you do work in the same industry. And I found that, to Jim's point earlier, when I was making the rounds doing those coffees, it was about really just trying to get to know them personally and looking for some commonalities to just try to start forming that relationship. Talking about our academic background or where we went to school or where we grew up or how we made our way, in the industry, and really kind of forming those personal relationships is what really kind of made the difference. And then over time, that became less of a factor because it was about the relationship more so than anything else.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mike. Excellent answers. And I know this is a delicate question because like Mike touched on, when you get into particular circles of influence, and as you move up the ranks as maybe a Black, African-American, minority, and or female in America, you find yourself more and more the minority, right? And it doesn't matter if it is the Black, doesn't matter the color of skin, it doesn't matter about the gender. And what we have to be able to do to break these barriers is realize that there is leadership in all demographics. And we cannot just limit ourselves. And we have to understand, and I tell people this all the time, we can't complain about the system if we're not willing to do what you gentlemen keep talking about. Do the right thing, work hard, put in the work, right? And work your way up. And just like you did, Mike, once you got into that position of power, you were able to bring more people up with you and help it become more diverse. So I believe this is something that's very important for the young generation to embrace, is being willing to put in the work their ways up into those circle of influences where they are the minority so they can bring others up with them. So we're going to go a different direction unless we have another question on the mentorship or sponsorship. Thank you, gentlemen. Next, we're going to go with, what is your circle of influence and how does it impact you and your career?
I'm happy to take that one on. So this is a fun question. Because if you think about your circle of influence, normally think about, maybe you're fortunate enough to have a couple of employees and you think, okay, that's my circle of influence. It's really not. When you think about your circle of influence, it is certainly your employees if you have them. It's also your employees' family, because if they have a good day at work, they come home in a good mood versus coming home in a bad mood from a bad day. But you also have your coworkers, your peers, your boss, your family, your friends. I mean, it's a whole circle. And how do you show up every day makes a big difference. One of the things I was going to add into the last question that fits perfectly in this one is, I've met people over my career that have been just amazing networkers, and they'll come in and you like them right away because they're friendly. And anyway, sometimes when they do that, and let's say you happen to be the boss and they network into you and you say, this person seems fantastic, and you take a peek under the hood and you find out their performance is terrible. Be careful with that. So the advice we're giving you today is, you've got this huge circle of influence, use it, but make sure you're performing at the absolute top of your game, because somebody will peek under the hood. And when they do, you want to make sure they see something that's worthy of them looking at. So, think about that with your circle of influence and how you're networking. And, Mike and I've said it a couple of times, all this stuff is great, but it will fall apart if your performance isn't good, your character is not strong, and you're not showing up with your A game literally every day. So I kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we're walking through this stuff.
And when I think about the concept of your circle of interest of influence, I think about the fact that typically highly successful folks, they're focused on things that they can either impact directly or through others. And so what that means is, if you want to improve your circle of influence, obviously it first starts with you by improving your own technical expertise or your own skill set to be able to get things done. But then also, again, going back to expanding that number of quality relationships that can help you deliver the results that you're trying to do and trying to expand the circle. But again, at Jim's point, you're looking to develop quality relationships that you can leverage to help you get results.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mike, Jim. And Jim, I love how you said when they make sure you're performing when they peek under the hood and trying to come and show up your best every day. And I like to say, I have a little saying, of course it's not my own. You try to get 1% better every day. I mean, if it's very simple, very easy, but it doesn't matter what organization or what you are doing, if you show up to get a little bit better every day, then as you are creating those networks and circles of influence, you are going to be able to not only move up in the organization or as an entrepreneur, you're going to be able to help others while you're doing it as well. We do have another question that came in. Let me take a look. Great question. So another one from Monica Jones. Thank you for your engagement. How does social media play a role in developing relationships and influence?
I'm going to go the opposite of that. By the way, I'm a huge social media person. You can find me all over it, but here's something you got to be careful of. And that whole thing about people peeking under the hood, people will check you out on social media, and just make sure that the things that you're posting, the people you follow, the pieces that you comment on are the same as who you want to show up as at work. I can give you, I could take the rest of this call talking about cautionary tales of things that was either in the hiring process that somebody didn't get hired for, or was in a promotion process or some other thing at work where you would happen to check out somebody's social media and it was really just not, it wasn't in the vein of showing up with your A game every day, being the right character. It was something maybe a little different. So I know that doesn't answer the question directly, but I have always tried to take the time to take the microphone and warn people about the bad side of social media, to be careful.
And I think why obviously there's a major attraction to social media because it allows you to. We talked about expanding your circle, your networking circle, and it allows you to do that very quickly to a lot of people. But I think, to Jim's point, I think you also have to be mindful of which platforms you desire to participate in. So obviously LinkedIn very is professional for professional purposes. Facebook, obviously you can leverage that, but you have to think about, are these mediums the ones that I'm going to be actively engaged on? Are they going to connect me with the people that I want to be connected with to move my business along or to move my career along? And we know that some are probably a lot more useful, a lot more helpful, a lot more targeted to the audience you're seeking than others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Jim, in one sense, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It can really help you, and it can really help spread your influence, especially in 2022. But on the flip side, if you are not being true to who you say you are, and your character doesn't align with what you do at work, that will get exposed. I remember one of the questions I used to ask a lot on, and I'll still do it sometimes for an interview, is when I look at your Facebook account, what am I going to see? And the look on their face sometimes just tells it all. But we have some more questions rolling in, so I don't want to digress. We have two really good ones. So let's see, we'll stay with this model because it flows with the mentorship, and I'll go back to Mark. So we'll go with Ronnie Vickerstaff. Excuse me if I said your last name incorrectly, at least I wanted to try. What effect has the pandemic had on the traditional business model / role in terms of mentorship and upward mobility?
I think it's been a little bit devastating because obviously you don't have direct access to people like you did before. So you can't, like Jim said, you can't call somebody up and say, let's go get that cup of coffee, at least previously. In 20 and 21, obviously that negatively impacts your ability to do that. So obviously it's had some, just to recap, it's just had some negative impact on your ability to do that.
It truly has. I want to point out something Mike said earlier, though, because there is a bright side to this thing too. By the way, it's like 70% bad, but there is a 30% lining out there.
Mhm.
Like I said earlier about cultures and companies, and one of the cultures that I've lived through a couple times now are cultures that if you want to move up quickly, you can accomplish that, but you have to move around. In fact, when I came to Chicago, this was number 14 for me. I've lived all over the place. I love Chicago. Been here 10 years, never leaving. Greatest city in the world, but I have moved around a lot because it helped me get where I wanted to go. The one thing that has come good out of the pandemic is technology adoption, and that's things like Zoom and the different ways that you communicate. So if you're in a company that happens to be larger than just say the city of Chicago, so it's regional or nationwide or even worldwide, it has made it easier to network with people in other cities. Zoom is so much more effective than a phone call. So in my past life, when I was trying to network with, like I lived in Dallas for a while, and we had a very, very big office in Trenton, New Jersey. I'd pick up the phone and call people, but Zoom would have made that a lot better. So Mike's right; it's not been a good thing for us overall, but there is a way to work that, especially if you're in a larger organization.
Absolutely. I know for me personally, having mentors and of course at all levels do, but as soon as the pandemic hit and you're used to meeting with them regularly or being able to just walk in the office or say, hey, can we get a cup of coffee, to I don't know, I'll see you when I see you. And yes, Zoom, like you gentlemen said, has now it pushed Zoom more into the business and the religious organization realm and to the forefront because they realized how much they had to utilize it. But at the same time, it was devastating on a lot of relationships. So fortunately, fingers crossed, we're on the up and the rising, right? So there are a couple questions that I really want to get to. Tony, I love that aspect. So I think I'll go on that one next. But I did want to hit Mark's. Mark Hay asks, do you have some habits you have to be mentally, do you have some habits I'm assuming you can recommend you could be mentally ready each day for work?
Go
ahead.
Okay. So I don't know if everybody's ever heard of the North Star. Everybody calls it something different, guiding principles, your North Star, or whatever. I don't know that this necessarily motivates me to go to work. It kind of does. But I've always found it helpful. And I did this earlier in my career, again, through a mentor, I may add. His name's Steve, by the way. I'll just start calling him Steve because we've been friends for 32 years at this point. He had suggested getting together in my own mind and figure out what is it that I wanted to stand for in my work career. What was going to be my North Star. And I quickly figured out, because I was in retail, that people, respect, and finding ways for everybody to win. So those three was going to kind of be my guiding star. So we all get into little issues at work. I've been through good times and bad times. Everybody has. And what I found really important is if I keep those three things top of mind and I try to make all my decisions around those three principles and not vary from them, it does somewhat motivate me when I'm going into a rough day and I know I've got something maybe, unpleasant to have to do. Or sometimes, I'm just not feeling it. It's 90 degrees out and I want to go play in the sun rather than go to work. Just staying really focused on those three things that were important to me has really helped me over the last couple of decades.
Your value system. I love it. Mike?
Yep.
I think for me, I am big in my faith. And so I do try to make sure I start every day with something, some type of devotional, something that kind of gets me grounded, gets me focused. And you'll be surprised that those little devotionals come back and help you at some point during the day. I can recall one I read about the power of the tongue, and I was in one of those unproductive meetings and I just was ready to blow. And I just said, I'm just going to hold my tongue. Hold my tongue here. I'm big on to-do list. And one of the more interesting things I ever heard was, I think it was the CEO of Tyson Foods. I was at one of those fireside chats and, kind of like this, a networking thing. And he was talking about it's just as important to have a to-don't list as it is to have a to-do list. And he said that you've got to make time for yourself every day, almost like you schedule a meeting. So you may schedule 15, 20 minutes when you first get to the office where you're not taking any phone calls or whatever. You're maybe getting ready for some major meeting, or you're getting some things cleaned up that didn't get done the day before. But you've got this time that you guard, zealously, and that even your administrative assistant knows to guard that half hour, 8 o'clock to 8:30. He's not taking anything, unless it's the CEO or something really really major. I do think it's really important.
I love it. Thank you, gentlemen. I love how you both spoke on, values, traits, what you believe in, your faith. Jim, one thing, your North Star, also what is your why? Why do you get up? Why do you go to work? Finding out why you do what you do is vital to motivating yourself on a daily basis. I can't emphasize that enough. I tell my team that over and over again. Why do we do what we do? We want to change lives. So when you figure out what you want to do, that helps in those tough situations like Jim talked about. We all have them. That will help you. And then, like Mike said, you're in that room, your why and your true north and your value system and what you believe in, your faith, can stop you in those moments. And that can break, and it does break a lot of people in their career, is not having that power and that self-discipline to not say it, right, and control themselves. So because I love what the question that Tony talked about, especially something that I've been studying on recently, can you gentlemen touch on individuals 50 plus preparing for their second career? As I like to say, that's not the specific question, but that's, I think, overall gist of it. When you are pivoting and you get to a glass ceiling in career, what do you do? How do you navigate through that situation to prepare yourself for what's next?
I think for me, the question would be, how big a pivot are you looking to make? Are you looking to completely pivot away from an industry, a career, to something totally different? Or is it that you have not had the right opportunities in the current organization you're in, and looking, and may have been there for a long time, and now looking to pivot to a new company just in the same line? Because I think that those are two totally different, and one is obviously a lot more intense, a bigger leap of faith than the other.
I'm going to answer this a couple ways. First off, I'm going to answer it for the folks that are on the call that are younger. Because I did something smart a while ago. Didn't know it was smart at the time. It turned out that it was. So, good for us. But, we talked about networking a lot. And Mike had talked about networking inside of your own company. I kind of went to the outside piece and Mike went to the inside piece. Here's where the inside piece really comes to help you. You will work for several companies, over your life, most likely. And they'll probably be bigger companies because that's kind of the trend that's going on out there right now. And as you move on with your career, all the people that you worked with at that company or those companies do as well. And what happens is when you start reaching back out to your network, if you've done it right from an earlier age, you now know people that are in every different industry and hundreds of different companies, and it gives you the huge leg up when you're trying to network into something. So if you're younger and you're on this call, networking is real and it's important. It is no longer about the job boards. They just don't work. It's about, knowing what's going on in different companies and having somebody there that's willing to be your sponsor because you had taken the time to get to know them earlier in your career. So that'd be the first part of my answer. The second part of my answer is this whole 50 plus thing is absolutely real because I'm going through it myself right now. And, I'm 57 and I retired, and then I found out, gee whiz, there's more stuff I'd like to do out there. And so I'm diving kind of back in, and it is absolutely a different game than the last time I was between jobs, which was 7 or 8 years ago. So what I found so far that works, and I'm not planting a flag and saying I figured it out, by the way, but what I will tell you, what seems to be working so far is finding groups. Well, first off, leveraging my network, which I've done because I've built a good network over the years, but also finding groups that are in industries that I want to get to, getting into those groups, meeting the people, asking their advice, finding people that are in the same position as I, learning from them, and just kind of starting that whole process over almost like it was 30 years ago. And so far, knock on wood, seems to be working.
I love it. Thank you. I hope, Tony, that answered your question a little bit or gave you a little bit different perspective. I know that can be challenging in all the different stages, right? Now, to not pivot too far away from the topic, I don't see any. Oh, perfect. Tony did respond. He said, great responses. Thank you. So I know, it's nice to get that live feedback. So I know you guys appreciate that. Now, how do you effectively develop sponsorship within your organization?
Well, I think it takes three things. I think obviously you first have to know your own career goals. And then, where do you want to go, within the organization? Where do you want to go within your career? So you can kind of try to chart a path there. And then secondly, again, like we've been saying all day, it comes down to performing at a high level. You can't get the next job if you're not doing the current job well. So you have to keep that in mind. And then again, going back to developing key relationships with potential sponsors, and mentors, and coaches within your organization.
Excellent.
Yeah, Mike is absolutely right. I worked for somebody, this has been a really long time ago, and they said something that's stuck to me ever since. They said that most people spend more time planning their summer vacation than they do their career. And it's absolutely, think about it. When's the last time you went on vacation? And you plan it out to within an inch of its life. And sometimes we just kind of wander through our career. If we get promoted, we think that's great. If we get demoted, we think, oh, that stinks. And you kind of move on. But there is an intentionality if you want to drive your career. There's an intentionality. And Mike hit on it, and that was kind of understand where you want to go to. And once you understand that, and by the way, it might not be, it might not be 40 years down the road. It might be, where do I want to be in a couple of years? Once you have that piece in your sight, you can do some really fun things. One thing you can do is network up. So let's say you're a manager I'll pick my old career, a manager in a retail store, and you want to go become a district manager. That's something I've done. One of the things that I did on that is I started network with district managers that I thought might be open to this type of thing. And I said, hey, I'm running store XYZ. I'm doing pretty good. I'm showing up with my A game every day. I want to be a DM. What can you tell me about it? And you'll get some really good advice. But the biggest thing you'll learn after talking to a few of them is what they have is in the way of skill sets that you don't currently have. And then you start to fill the gap. Where can I find those, where can I find those experiences to get me there? Very, very, very important. And by the way, along the way, you'll start to pick up sponsors and mentors, because if you're really authentic and you're really trying to learn from people and you're really trying to grow with people, that authenticity will show through, and they'll be willing to lend you a hand over time.
Excellent responses. Excellent. I think I know for myself, as when you get to different stages in your career and you start to look at the organization you're in and things you want to do outside the organization, you do have to be very particular in choosing individuals that you want to be like. If, like myself, want to be a CEO one day of a Fortune 500 company. So how do you do that? You get mentored by CEOs. You get on a regular basis, and not just from the organization you're in, from other organizations. And as you're talking to them, taking as much information as you can, being around them, being around those people that are in the positions that you want, whether it's the AD, like you say, I'm in the restaurant hospitality industry, so that's my language too. So if you want to go to area director, you're looking for regional, and as you want to get up into more of the support or the corporate side of it, HR, people development, it's all about connecting with the person in those positions and studying them and learning to model and becoming, not copying them, but modeling the character traits that got them there. So excellent responses. Thank you guys so much. Those are things that I love hearing. I love learning about this stuff. We had someone in here recommend a book that Tony bought for his team. He said he had a great book during the pandemic, How to Lead When You Are Not in Charge. This book gives me critical insight into how to leverage my influence inside and outside the organization. So for any, that's one I haven't particularly read, but if anybody, I know Tony said he bought it for his team, one of the individuals who is part of our church network, and he is very engaged in this conversation today as well. So we're going to continue. Let me make sure I don't have another question. Perfect. All right. So, in your opinion, gentlemen, at what level or position would you recommend someone to get a mentor or a sponsor?
I'm happy to start out on that one. I don't think there is a time that's too early. It just really is. The more I've witnessed life and gone through life, it is truly about who you know and who you've formed relationships with that helps you guide your way through, through your career, through your life, through your personal, whatever it might be. I know, it may look different. The mentor you have, say, as an entry level position, and the mentor you have when you've made it to, say, mid-level management, that'll be a very different mentor and sponsorship relationship. But they're just invaluable. And, we actually get a little leg up on this. A lot of times, my first job was washing pots and pans in a hospital. And this is back in the town I grew up in. And, I went through the indoctrination and I met all the people. And then they assigned me somebody that would come by and was kind of like my buddy in the system. I had no idea what a mentor was at that point. I was like 15 years old or something. Who knows, right? But that actually was a mentor. That was somebody that was assigned to me from the company or from the hospital to help me get through life. And anyway, I don't think you can start too young with that or too early in a career. And just really be intentional about it. You're trying to find the people that have already reached a level of success that you're striving to get to. Maybe they've been around for a long time. Their tenure gives them some tribal knowledge within the company. Who knows what that might be? But be intentional with who you're trying to pick up on that, because you're trying to learn. You're trying to further your career. And by the way, that relationship goes two ways. The reason one of my mentors and I have been friends for over 30 years is he's gotten just as much out of the relationship with me as I have him. So don't forget to, along the way, pay it back as well.
Yeah, much more I could add to that. I wholeheartedly agree with Jim. You can't sit on the sidelines. The earlier, the better, to get out and form relationships and seek advice on your career.
Absolutely. I love it. I know one of my mentors jokes, and every time I thank him for his time, he's like, Prince, if I wasn't getting something out of this, then I wouldn't be doing it. Like, well, thanks for being so frank with me. So we do have some questions, and I know we have about 10 minutes left, but we have been doing the live Q&A this whole time. So one thing I do want you gentlemen to touch on, if either one of you want to dive in, can you touch on advocates a little bit for us today? And would you say maybe the difference between the advocates, the versus sponsor mentorship, how that kind of plays into the dynamic?
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, I see that advocate being the same to me as that mentor. Who is talking about you in a positive way when you're not in the room? And who is trying to create opportunity for your next assignment when you're not in the room? And so that advocacy is the critical part of being a sponsor.
Yeah, Mike, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you think about it, there's a mentor, there's an advocate, and there's a sponsor. And there's a very thin line between sponsorship and advocacy. But advocacy really is somebody that's going to, and Mikey said it perfectly, is going to talk well about you when you're not in the room. A sponsor is a little bit different in that a sponsor will literally go to the boss's boss and say, hey, Jim needs promoted. We need to move him up. An advocate is a little less than that, but it's somebody that's just going to make sure they're spreading positive vibes about you in cases where you're not there. And it's very important, by the way. It's very, very important.
Really is. And I think a lot of companies have moved from a more informal basis of determining who are the players for to move up in the organization to actually having formal succession plans. A lot of businesses are now moving into that space in a very formal manner. And so that's something that we certainly have done. We do have a succession plan. There are conversations that take place in front of large groups of peers about, direct reports and what their career, what their career progression opportunities should look like based on their performance and their capacity to learn and take on new challenges, new responsibilities. So really important stuff.
Oh,
yeah, I don't want to freak anybody out online, because I can do that sometimes. I get a little intense when it comes to careers, but there's really no such thing as having. I'm putting this the wrong way. Literally every interaction you have is important. And you really can't afford not to have an A game day. We were talking about how you motivate yourself there. The one thing I forgot to mention, don't forget to get in your car and crank up whatever music you like, whatever level you like to listen to it at. I mean, you have to make sure when you show up, you are your authentic self and you're on your A game, because you just never know what person you've interacted with is going to be sitting with your boss's boss at lunch, or you just don't know that stuff. So again, I don't want to freak you out, but you can't afford to have a bad interaction. You just can't, because you never know who's going to be where and talking to whom. And just really, really be careful out there. That's probably one of the biggest things I can tell you, because I've been unfortunately on the wrong end of that, where I've had a bad interaction and it really didn't work out well for me. So just be careful. Be careful.
No, I'm loving these responses. I think it's fitting into a lot of what my mentors are telling me is with the advocates. If you're not having people speaking positive about you when you're not in the room, then that's going to hinder your success in the career. So we don't sometimes understand the conversations, to Mike's point, that are having behind the scenes. There's a lot of conversations to be had. And if you are not creating, developing genuine relationships, networking, and like you coming on your A game every day, trying to get a little bit better every day, you never know who's going to, like I say on my end, I tell the managers or GMs, you never know who's walking in. You never know who's going to be that person. So if you're not up to par, everything excellent, then that's your chance. You blew it. So we do have another question that I want to get into, because I think it's actually a really good one. We only have about 7 minutes left. That's the one, Karen. That's the one I think looks great. We're going to go with, that is from, let me make sure I get the name correctly. Is that from, again, Ronnie Vickertstaff. And his question is, and we might be able to end with this one depending on if some more questions come in. Guys, send your questions in. We got 7 minutes left. We'll try to get in as many as we can before we let these great guys off of here. They got a lot of great information. From your vast and wide-ranging experiences, have you observed a lack of focus on the company's goals just to obtain one's own needs?
Yeah, don't do that. It's a really bad thing. I have seen that, right? And I will tell you, we've all heard about karma. It is absolutely real. And you will see people like that. They may seem like they're maybe getting ahead a little bit in the companies, but it will absolutely come back to haunt you. You just can't build a house on a foundation that's that rocky. So if you really don't care about the company and their goals, quit. Go to another company that you do believe in, because that is a critical piece of success that you need to have to get far in a company, is really understand and drive the mission and work your way up the right way. My one man's opinion, but don't do that. Not good.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. And I think it goes back to an issue of character and integrity and just trying to do the right thing the right way every day. So I'm with you. It will, just like companies worry about reputation management, I think you have to do the same thing on a personal level within your career. What are people saying about you and how you go about doing your job on a day-to-day basis?
Excellent knowledge. I love those. And I think it's funny, you both talked about it a lot throughout this discussion. You said it in the beginning, Mike, you're a servant leader. You talked about helping people win. There's really only two types of leaders, in my opinion, and I say this all the time. You're either a servant leader or self-serving leader. And if you really want to achieve success in and out your organization, you have to finally stop trying to do it for your own needs and self-serving needs, and finally step out and say, let me find an organization, to Jim's point, that I love, that I enjoy, that I align with, and let me show up every day and give my best. and then work to make them better and help others win and serve others in the capacity, then you'll really be serving the organization and yourself at the end of the day. So excellent responses. We have another question let me see, I like this one. That one's finish out from Mark Hay again. And again, I appreciate all your guys' response and engagement. And then if you guys have any questions that we don't get to in the last few minutes, please post them, put them down. I know Mike and Jim will be going through, and they will be responding. If they can't get it today, please, I know that they did tell us that they're going to get to those. So put as many questions as you want so you guys can get as much information from them as you can. So question, in your opinion, gentlemen, are people born as great leaders innately, or is it a learned behavior?
Absolutely a learned behavior. If would be a whole other phone call and a very long one. I can give you, including myself, hundreds of people that I've met over the years that if you would see how they grew up, what they were involved in, maybe when they were young, mistakes they made, you think, wow, this person is just doomed to fail. And time and time again, me personally and other people I've seen move along and go up in the right direction because they've just somewhere along the line, they've met the right people and done the right things. So I believe it is learned. And you also can never stop learning. When you do that, that's when your career pretty much comes to an end. So it's one of those things where you need to, that's a lifelong passion of learning once you get moving.
I agree with Jim. I can't speak for others. I only speak from my personal journey. And I would say that it's a learned behavior. My first, role in a, supervisory management role was disastrous, but I learned a lot from it. I took a lot away from it. And used it to, as I moved into other, other leadership opportunities along the way. So definitely for me, it was learned and acquired along the way.
I love how you finished with that one, Mike, because I can't tell you how many times I've told some of my mentees or people that I'm helping out, I've destroyed more restaurants than I fixed before I learned how to actually fix the restaurants. So it's if you're not willing to understand it's a learning process and you're going to fail. And to Jim's point, leadership is lifelong learning. The moment you stop learning is really the moment you stop leading. So that goes into being on your A game, showing up, trying to get better every single day. This discussion has been great. I know it's been very valuable for me. A lot of great information I was going to take away from these guys, and I know I'm just taking these nuggets. And I hope a lot of you were able to get some great nuggets as well. And I really appreciate all of the engagement. This was excellent. Really appreciate you guys coming in here so we can make it more organic, more live. Now, is there anything that you, Mike and Jim, want to say to the audience before we leave them?
Mike, you want to go first?
Sure. One thing, we talked about networking and a lot of things about developing relationships. One other thing I wanted to just bring up is if you've got opportunities to raise your hand for other exposure opportunities, to expand the number of people who know you and what you bring to the table, do some, some projects over and outside your normal, scope of work, do it, especially those projects or committees that allow you to work directly with people you hope will sponsor you at some point. So raise your hand for additional assignments would be one thing. But I think the last thing I just want to bring up is you got to understand that you have to own your own career progression. It starts and ends with you. It's not up to the coach, mentor, or sponsor. Know where you want to go. Make sure people are aware of your career goals, especially leaders. Be committed to excellence in your performance. Be coachable. Be that team player. And again, relationships matter. So building critical relationships, key relationships, productive relationships, and refining your relationship building skills is extremely important.
Absolutely true, Mike. Great advice. And I guess I'll just end up by asking a favor of everybody. So a lot of smart people on this phone, and there's going to be a lot of good careers out there. When you are lucky enough and fortunate enough to walk through that door of opportunity, and a lot of you are going to do it, it is critically important that as you walk through that door, you reach back, stick your arm back in, and pull as many people through with you as possible. So that would be my ask of you, is it's a pay it forward message that, when you're lucky enough to achieve success, you have to bring as many people through that door with you as possible. So I'm going to leave it with that ask, and I'm going to trust all of you to do that.
And thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mike. And that ask, we couldn't ask anything more. As you continue to move up, bring as many people as you can with you. And thank you all again for joining us for our panel discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you got a nugget out of this event, please hit that share button, share it to as many people as you can, your circle of influence, so this information can be valuable for them. Again, thank you all for coming today, and we really appreciate you. Have a great day.
Thanks.
See you, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.